Hello my crafty friends. Today I'm going to share with you how I use Square1 to create a custom shirt for a craft I'm going to. So I've got my image loaded and I need to get registration marks. And to do that, up here in the top menu bar there's three little black corner looking things. That's going to pop up my registration mark. And then I need to click the box that says show registration marks. When I click that, the little hashtags are going to come up with also the black little square here. And then there's like two lines for the corner in the corners. That's going to print on your paper for the Cameo or portrait to read so it can cut correctly. But as you can see here with where my image is placed, it is going over into that hash mark area and down below the red line on the bottom. So I need to fix my registration marks just a little bit so that my image will be inside the red line that goes around my page, because that is the cut area when you're doing print and cut. So if your image is outside of that area, it won't cut. So we're going to go ahead and get that fixed over here. We can change the left, the top, the right, and the bottom margins. I'm going to go ahead and fix the top here by pressing that down button. It's going to actually move the hashtag mark closer to the edge of the top of the paper. And as you can see there, it's now moved up off of where my image is. So it will now cut correctly. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the bottom edge of the paper and move that down. So the bottom of my diamond is now inside that red line. So that's going to work out good, and we're going to get a good cut now with it being all inside of that red lined area. So now we're going to need to send it to the printer so we can get it printed. Right here is the send to printer button. On the right side of that is the send to silhouette button. So we're going to go ahead and click send to printer, and it's going to pop up the print window. Then you're going to want to click on your printer. I'm using my Artisan, so I'm going to go ahead and get that selected so I have the correct printer. And then I'm going to go into preferences to make sure I'm printing with the right preferences. There's a couple different choices I have for my printer. Best Photo does not work very good with the iron on. It gives too much ink for it, and it's just a little bit overwhelming for it. I usually go with a nice medium and do the text image setting for mine. If I would have just left my preferences, as you can see, text was selected, so I needed to change that so I can get the best print, the best ink for my inkjet printable iron-on. Then I'm going to click OK, and then I can go ahead and click print so that it will send the image to my printer. And then with that, now we're going to need to load our iron-on into our printer, and in order to do that, you need to make sure that you're putting the correct side into the printer to get printed on. So you can see on the printable, it's kind of hard to see in the picture here, but this side is the adhesive side. It looks very, very glossy, and it is the side that actually gets put down on the material you're ironing it to, and we don't want to print on that side. So it's the fabric side that I'm loading up in my printer so that when it prints out through the printer, it's going to print on the correct side. As you can see it coming out the printer now. So it's doing a really good job, and it's gonna be dry rather quickly. If your printer put out a lot of ink, it will take a little bit longer to dry. But every time I printed, within just a few seconds, maybe sometimes a minute or so, my image is totally dry. So that works out really well for printing. And then now we're going to come back into the software, and I always, before sending it to the Cameo, like to check on my cut lines. So in order to do that, we're going to go to this cut line window. It's the little scissors with red line through it, and as you can see right now, I have the cut edge selected, so it's going to go around the edge. If you wanted it to cut out all the little letters, then you just do the regular cut and it will cut out all the letters in the middle and the designs and everything, but for the project that I'm doing today, it will be best to just cut the edge. It'll make it a lot easier to iron on. It'll cut out the little K and the S and the little P, but it'll leave it as a full intact image. So now we're going to go into our silhouette cut settings, and that's the little blade looking icon up on the menu bar there. And so once we get in there, it goes ahead and puts your paper onto the mat. So it looks like it's getting ready to get cut. And as you can see here, we have our paper in the landscape view. So that way, when you put your paper on the mat, you make sure you adhere it to your mat right before you put it into the printer. And I'm printing, I'm cutting with Square1 Printable Iron-On, which I have created a custom setting for that. And you can do that by hitting that little plus button there. You can go ahead, once you type it in and you hit that, then it will create a custom media basically, and so you'll always have Square1 Printable Iron-On in there. And then there's the speed setting for iron-on. I generally do a speed of 3, sometimes 4. Just kind of depends on how intricate my shape is. And then, you know, change the thickness. For iron-on, I do somewhere between 20 and 25. And then the blade, when you adjust it on the computer, it doesn't actually adjust the blade in your machine. So you have to manually change the blade in your machine. But this is kind of so when you click on the Square1 printable setting, it will say, oh, the blade needs to be on 2. So then you'll just check the blade in your machine to make sure it's matched up or whatever. But the best cutting for the iron-on I found for my machine is 5. And then there's this test cut button here. Always, 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 I can't stress it enough, do a test cut when you're cutting material if you haven't cut before or it's been a while, so that you're not wasting your material. So we're going to go ahead and get our iron-on set up on our mat and make sure it's lined up in the corner on the left-hand side and comes across that top line. You want to make sure you get it lined up nice and straight. This is going to help you get a good cut from the image, because the silhouette, you're going to load up the mat, and as you can see right there, there's a line. It's hard to see, and I've used a piece of Square1 on the thing to kind of point it out better. But you want to make sure the edge of your mat is lined up, so that way it's lined up correctly. Then make sure it says load media. Go ahead and hit the enter button, and the machine will feed in your mat, and it'll be all ready to go to start cutting with. But as I mentioned before, doing the test cuts, and so to do that, you can go ahead and use the arrow keys on the control pad. As you can see, I'm moving it down to the bottom and all the way to the right, because I'm not going to need that bottom corner is not any of my design. So by doing a test cut over there, I'm not wasting any Square1. And I'm just going to go ahead and click test cut, and now it's checking for the edge of the paper, and then it's going to come back across and give me a test cut right there on the bottom. And then my mat's going to spit it out, and since I did do it on the bottom, now I'll be able to check without unloading my mat to see how well it did a test cut, and it turned out really good. It cut all the way through, and with iron-on you're going to want to make sure it cut all the way through. And then I always just come back into my machine and I do a reset, and I just close out of the cut settings, and then come back into it in case the test cut messed up with anything, and then just double check my settings, make sure I have that all correct, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on the cut button. So it's going to send it to my Cameo, and then it's going to go ahead and detect those registration marks, and that's what the machine is doing right now. It was looking for the little square, and it looks for the corner pieces to make sure those are all lined up correctly. It gets the machine all lined up so it knows where your image is. Right there is where the eye of the cricket or the Cameo is right in by the blade. And so now it's going to go ahead and cut out the image. And when it's all done, then you can click enter and that will unload your mat. And you can start pulling up your iron on, and it should come right off. It's kind of, with the iron on, it's a little more sticky, so you have to work a little harder. But there's my weeded image, and now I'm going to get it set up on my t-shirt. Make sure that you have washed and dried your t-shirt before ironing it on, and then I always do a quick iron just to make sure my front of my shirt is flat so that I'm getting a good seal with the adhesive when I do iron it on. And then your iron setting wants to be on the highest. You want to have it on the highest setting, but do not do steam at all. And then with that, so you'll have it turned all the way up for iron setting. And then I always just do a little bit to just start getting it stuck down. And if you're doing just letters that are all cut out, then if you just lay them out and set the iron on it for just a second and lift it back up, it kind of creates a seal. But so you're going to want to iron for about 10 to 15 seconds in different spots. You don't need to press down, just kind of wiggle the iron around a little bit. Now you go over it 2 or 3 times for about 10 to 15 seconds in each space. And when you have like where the K and the S, I always just kind of go over those a little bit more just because they're sticking out, and you want to make sure you get a good tight seal so it's not pulling those up. So that is the thing. And then the washing, I usually try to let my images set for a week to dry before I actually wash them. And then when you're washing them, you're going to want to place them in a washer and do a cool wash and then dry on a low temp setting. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.